Here we go.
We're on.
Live.
Monday morning.
Mm-hmm. Reagan and Jen are bringing the death of the Good Friday Easter message, and Cece and I are bringing the resurrection Easter egg colors. Thanks, girls, for being so themey for me. You make me feel at home every time.
Are you guys kitty corner too, like it is on my screen?
No,
We are.
I've got you guys stacked on death on the left, life on the right.
That's awesome.
No, I'm just super excited to be part of a Monday coffee talk that is entitled Hammer or Screwdriver. Like, yeah, that's how I already feel and it's Monday morning. I mean, I don't know who else feels like that, but this is awesome. So if you're feeling like that right now and you've logged in with us, share it. Because I know that we're not the only women that are feeling that today, and we're going to get into what is that even about? I have my own thoughts, but I'm sure that's just due to being dirty on a Monday. All right.
Reagan.
Black. The death thoughts.
It's black. It's black. I'm gonna go pink next week and just feel like if I'm thinking of bunnies and marshmallows or something. And just so everybody knows, if you see Cece talking and it's like her mouth is moving and no words until like 2 seconds later, we just thought it'd be fun to kind of almost like subtitle it. So when her mouth starts talking, I might actually start saying the words and then you'll hear her actual words like in
Hello.
5 second delay. Hello, Reagan. You're beautiful.
It's like a foreign film. It's good. I like it.
It is. Well, we want to jump right in today because we are talking. I mean, honestly, I know we've been really talking about the do more of what matters. And this is just part 1. And that's all I know. But I know this is exactly 100% where I'm at. I'm like, I want to do more of what matters. All right. And it's not wiping bottoms. It's not sitting at my PTL meetings like for nonstop. I mean, it's just, I feel like it's just stirring in me. And then we threw in the whole hammer screwdriver that Jamie was talking about. So, I mean, Jamie, what's going on? Like, give me, what is this? When you say do more of what matters, like, what are you talking about exactly?
Yeah, so part 1 of 3 is what we're jumping into here, because in April, anybody who's willing, anybody who says, gosh, that's me, I need to highlight some things in my life and I need to cross some things out, not because they're bad, but maybe because you've got too much good and it's stealing from your great. Anybody that relates to that and goes, now how do I do that exactly? Because I am wiping bottoms a lot. I need to sit in on these meetings. What am I doing? How can I walk in greater alignment with what I am called to do? And what is that exactly? How do we know that? And am I actually being obedient to it? Or am I just coming up with some ideas in my head? All of those things that we think about in pursuing a purpose-filled life. That's what doing more of what matters, our title, is covering. And in April, we're going to be doing a more in-depth webinar for anybody that wants to jump in and like bang it out. Figure it out. So we are just giving little intros here in the next 3 weeks so that we can kind of catch the ones that go, yep, that's me. You can identify yourself and then jump in with us and take it further later. So part 1 of the 3 parts is really starting at the beginning of what I just said. What is our purpose? And how do we make our time and our resources align with that? How can we do more of that? How can we do more of the things that bring meaning and significance and bring glory to God? How do we do more of those things in our life? So we're jumping in.
I'm taking notes already. Webinar part 1, people.
Part 1. We'll try to just give little snippets today because I know it's a big topic. So
yeah. So I think, to be honest, like just for me, you kind of hit it first. Like, I feel like you do want to do more of what matters, but then how exactly do I even know what that is? Because I feel like everything matters, like, I joke about the wiping butts, but as a mom, like that does matter. Do I want my kid walking around with poo-poo stuck on their bottom because they never wipe because they didn't know how? Like, no, that's important. But, at the end of the day, when you're just feeling drained and exhausted, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, what, I can't be the only mom. It's like, what is this all about? Like, is this my life? Like, is this
Yeah.
the whole thing?
Yeah. I think before we can even jump into what matters and even the do, I think we really have to jump into the who part, because that is the most important part of the what. Because
Yeah.
what we do is an extension of who we are, but most importantly, who God is. So I like to think of it as art. I am not an art connoisseur. Like, take me to an art museum and I'll be like, oh, pretty colors, oh, fun. And I love music. I love some things, some forms of art I connect to. But when we're talking about art on a canvas up on the wall, I have no good judgment as to what would make that good art. To be honest with you, I've walked into art museums and thought my 4-year-old could do better than that. And you're selling it for what? you know? And so, but what I've found about art, and you don't have to be a wizard to know this, is that the art, no matter what it looks like, it could look like a 4-year-old mess. The value is not in how we perceive it. The value is in who created it. And so the masterpiece, as it is, could sell for millions because of the master, the one who made the masterpiece. It becomes valuable because of who the artist is. And you and I have to buy into with absolute confidence that your and my value is not a perceived value, not based on what anybody else would say, not based on what I perceive myself to believe about me. It's an absolute 100% confidence that my value comes from the fact that God, the master artist of the entire universe, never has been a better one in the past, never will be a better one in the future. He thought me up and he created me. And he didn't just go, I think I'm just going to whip something out today. Like, there was intentional thought when he put me together, because he thought, I'm going to make this girl in my image because I know that there's something that the world needs, that when I make her, she's going to bring that piece of me to that.
Yeah.
And so it became very specific when he made Jamie Beeson. And so it isn't about what I do first and foremost. It's about who I am. So my mess, you may look at my life, I may look at my life and go, mess. My 4-year-old could do a better job of what I've got. But it doesn't matter what I perceive about it, because the mess that our life is part of the masterpiece story that he plays out, because his message always comes through. What looks like a message, he flips it around, and it's always a masterpiece that makes people's attention go, whoa. I mean, if you think of creation, it's the same way. I mean, when you've got valleys, the valleys create the magnitude of the mountains. And valleys were created by rivers rushing through it. And it could have looked like disaster, but really it was carving away, creating magnitude of a mountain, in which we then look up, because we're in the valley, we're able to look up, and it turns our eyes to go, wow, I stand in awe of something, right? So what can look like destruction, what can look like mess, is all part of our story, woven into this purpose that God thought up before you and I, made a loud screaming presence into this world. We start there. We start there. And as soon as we're confident in that and we believe that, then we can go, all right, I believe it. So what's my mess saying?
So is that where a hammer or screwdriver comes into? Now I'm just like, I'm like, okay, so am I painting with a hammer or screwdriver? How's this going?
Yeah. So once we know this and we believe it, and we believe we have this very unique thumbprint. I love the thought, and sometimes I have to remind myself of this. I'll be honest, this last week I had to remind myself of this over and over, because that's the thing about knowing your purpose. You will still question sometimes whether you're doing it right, whether you are doing it well, whether you're doing the thing that gives him the most glory, whether you're messing it up. And sometimes when we're going into this hammer and screwdriver thing, somebody will assign a role to you, and they'll speak that over you, whether it was a parent, a coach, a teacher. They'll say, you were meant to do this. And so we have to almost remove our own framework from what they say we were meant to do and go, wait a minute, what does God say I'm meant to do, right? And so the idea of knowing what God says and how he created us, knowing that I'm this unique thumbprint, then it goes to, after belief, it's to awareness of what is that thumbprint in me? What is that piece in me? And it's not hidden. I think so many of us are like, gosh, okay, pursue purpose. I'm going to have to like dig, and I'm going to have to study, and I'm going to have to, it's not hidden. In fact, I believe that the purpose for which God created us and these little giftings he put in us have shown up all along.
Yes.
There's these little threads, like even as children, they showed up, and we didn't try to have them show up.
Yeah.
So this leads me to the analogy of the hammer and the screwdriver. The person that came up with the invention of a screwdriver was like, we need to screw these screws in, and here's the head. How can we get some grip? Made the screwdrivers like, this is going to screw the screw in. Here's the deal. As we grow up as little baby screwdrivers into big screwdrivers, we might have had a parent go, you know what? I am in the accounting business, therefore you should take over my accounting business. And you're like, okay, I'll just follow my family's footsteps and become an accountant. Or my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I should be a stay-at-home mom. And so here we are as a screwdriver, and we're trying to pound some nails. Can we do it? Sure. Does it feel right? Not really, because the screwdriver has a grippy grip, and it's often got ridges in it. And you might try the point and go, well, okay, that's too hard because the point's way too small for me to hit the head of the nail. And then you jam some holes into the wall and you're like, dang, okay, that's not a good fit. So you flip the handle around and you bang it there, and you don't feel really great about doing that. You're like, I guess it's working, but gosh, when I look at hammers doing their job of banging in the nails, they seem to do it flawlessly and easily, right? So what's wrong with me? Nothing. Nothing's wrong with you. You just weren't made to nail in hammers or nail in nails. You're made to screw in screws. Right. So when you experience screwing in screws and you go, that was easy. I had no idea that would be so fun. I thought, yay, woo, twirling around in a circle and pushing something in is my thing. And then all the hammers in the room, they're like, how'd you do that? Like, wow, I wish I could do that, and then we look at each other and go, yeah, how about you stick to hammering in the nails? I'll stick to screwing in the screws. It's this spot. Reagan and Jen, you're having a hard time with it. But the reality is I'm staying simple, right?
Yeah.
This is all for you. That's the reality, is we find our sweet spot. We find our thing that goes, gosh, I'm made and cut out and designed for this. And when I do it, without being ashamed of not being a hammer.
Right. Yeah.
When I do this, I feel really good. And then we end up going, I know what assignments make sense for me. I'm a screwdriver. So when I see that there's projects that need my piece, I know where to go. And I know how to align.
Yes.
Right? And I can let the hammers run freely in my life. Like, you go do your thing, and I'll do my thing. And so, like I said, it starts with believing, number one, that there's, we all have this general purpose, obviously, to love God and love people. But then there's this very specific, unique, just for you and only you, ever was just for you and ever will be just for you, unique thing. And yes, there's lots of screwdrivers, but they all have specific assignments and places that God will intersect a piece of the world's need with your project and ability. And so those assignments line up in this beautiful intersection. So once we have the belief, we become aware of these ingrained gifts that God put there. Does that mean that we don't need to grow? No. I mean, we certainly need to grow. And I think he partners our gifts with skill, because let's be honest, if you may be a great, let's just say teacher, okay? I went to my bachelor's in teaching. You may be a great teacher, but if you aren't good at communicating, or you aren't good at assessing people's understanding, then maybe you won't deliver as well, right? You could actually improve that. Or maybe you have a gift with numbers as an accountant. If you don't have social skills, you're not going to have any clients. So you may need to develop some things that will help to amplify your gifting. So we certainly have skills and experience and preparation seasons that line us up to greater and bigger assignments, bigger projects. We may start with just hanging a picture on the wall as a hammer. That's our first assignment, but that helps us to refine and get better for the bigger build in our life.
Well, one thing you said, and I want to see what Cece thinks of this too, that just totally blew my mind, forgive me for laughing at the hammer and screw analogy. Okay. It's just my Monday morning. All right. But I just felt like when you said, like, even what people have said about you, because we all grew up and people throughout will say things about what they see in you, who you're called to be from when you're even a little kid, like, oh, you're going to be a leader. Oh, you're so outgoing. You're so friendly. You could give great speeches. I just feel like when you said that, of like taking that away and just seeing what is God saying about you, because how often, I know, even just speaking for myself, that are we sitting in a spot? And I've known you for so long. I mean, you went to school when we lived together, you were a teacher. You're going to be a teacher. You got your teaching degree. That's what you went to do. And now you're not sitting here being like, oh, I've missed my calling because now I'm no longer teaching at a school using this actual degree, you know, that everybody said is going to be amazing at, that people, you know, my parents invested money for you to do. So,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it started as one assignment for me. That's the idea. We talked on this. I shared Eric's little teaching for me in terms of understanding the vision, right? Our purpose is not laid out all as one big map. I think of it as like a relay race that we will receive a baton and he's like, go, and you run. And then he's like, okay, hand off. And sometimes this is my story, or part of my story, is once I got my first baton, I'm like, go. And then there's like, hand off. I'm like, nope, still going. Right. And then he's like, hand off. I'm like, you know, like I'm in my groove. I'm like hitting the peak of my speed. Like, I don't want to stop here. I'm doing good. And so when he forced the handoff, then I was a little frustrated thinking that my race was over. And really it was just hand it off and then look back, because I got the next baton for you to race. And I didn't see each leg, you know, he didn't unfold each leg for me, but I can see now how each piece of my story has prepared me for the next. Right? And the more I'm aware of what he's doing in me and through me, the more the next assignment becomes clear, and I can align my time, my thoughts, my resources to those things, and be ready to pass when he says pass, and receive when he's got something new for me for the next leg of my race.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would just add, sorry if I'm on delay. I was thinking, Reagan, it was good that you passed that to me, because the whole time Jamie was talking, I was thinking, I want to do a shout out to all of those like me, that my parents never said you should do this or should do that. I never had anybody really say you would be destined for this or that, because the paradigm of my family was so different. It was very chaotic. And even in chaotic homes, lots of times, even then, a dad or a mom will lay this strong mantle on us. So maybe that's you. But in my case, I felt like as a late teen and early 20s coming to Jesus, I started at so ground zero with my passions. And I became a teacher right away. And people did say leader, teacher. But for me to want to be a Bible teacher was so out of the realm of who I was around, what family I came from. And I was very shameful for a while about that passion, because nobody in those early years said, that would be a good one. You know, they said you could teach fitness. I have almost an English degree and a theater degree too. And so got that thing down. But similar to Jamie, it was the Bible that made me come alive to teach. And as a woman, it's a little difficult. So anyway, those of you that some of you have to break down the paradigm that Jamie's talking about. Others of us with your passion, and she'll get to cover this in her webinar, I'm sure. You had nothing to start with, but still, in both cases, the answer comes from being in God and then learning how to screw in that screw. And it just comes from him in both ways.
That's good.
I love it. Well, as you're talking to, and yes,
sorry, the dirty minds with Reagan and I, we kind of feed off of each other, and it's hard to say screw multiple times and not giggle. But I still pulled out the nuggets. Honestly, what stood out to me, and I know your story, Jamie, and I think it will be so awesome for women to see that behind the scenes of how you discovered what baton to pick up. Like, how did you even know that? Some women don't even know, most of us don't even know that. Like, what baton? You're sitting and they're all laid out. Which one do I even grab to start the run? You know? But I think having the boldness to be able to pick up that baton and just start running. How many times have we started to run with a baton and realized, I like certain aspects of this. Yes, I will pass it on and take what I learned from that and then go to the next leg. And he uses, like, I love how you talked about, he uses every leg. You take what you learned from that one and then you go to the next one. And as we're developing and we're learning more about ourselves, but honestly, the ground zero, talking about belief, it is so hard. And Pastor Levi said this yesterday. It's so hard to know who we are and our strengths and our gifts without knowing who God is. Like it's almost impossible because we are his creation. It's very difficult to understand who we are, what this unique makeup, this complicated, beautiful mess we are without knowing who created us. Because I think once you get to know who created you intimately, then you start to understand how you were wired. You know, it's almost like he gives you a preview into, oh, I used these tools when I created you. And I thought a little splash of this, a little bit of splash of that. And what's beautiful about it is knowing, like, you know, the things that were spoken over us when you talked about that. I think sometimes they're just assumptions. And my mom and I have talked about this. So many of the women in my family taught, they went to college, then they got married. And I know for me, I did it completely opposite. I got married at 19, before I got a degree, never ended up getting my degree, you know, just doing everything opposite. Nobody ever said, this is what you're going to do. But I think the world screams messages at us, whether it's inside our house or out in society.
Yes.
So one of the things that I love about doing more of what matters is I know what we're going to be diving into, and I know the end result is freedom. And there's nothing more restricting to us as women than to constantly second guess the lane we're running in, constantly second guessing the baton we're holding. And it's exhausting. And he wants you to be able to just clear that runway and run with freedom. And I know that that's what doing more of what matters shows us. And being able to say, okay, this is how I was created. And then, you know, what are those strengths? What are those gifts? What are those passions? And then Cece, next week, she's going to dive into a little bit about, well, how do I really care? How do I take those and then care for my mind, my body, and my soul? Because we can't just run races all the time. We're going to burn out. I don't care if it is in your gifting. You know, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers book, he talks about how it takes 10,000 hours to do something to really master it. But you can't just say, I want to be a quarterback in the NFL. I'm going to do 10,000 hours of practice, right? And I'm going to be good at it. No, because I wasn't gifted that way. So it's a combination of applying those 10,000 hours with the giftings that you were given. Dynamic. But Cece's going to show us, like, how do you do that without sacrificing unnecessarily? And then we'll go into applying it practically. So I can't wait.
One more thing, Jen, before this is so, I was like, okay, keep it short. I think just as a, because we start with the belief of who we are.
Right.
I can't not leave this moment, even though it's not a webinar, I can't leave this moment without there also being the end understanding. It's like end caps or bookends. That when we start to understand what we're made to do because of who we are, that your tool is actually meant to be a power tool, and you're not the power source.
Right.
And so the plugging into the power, we will never fully walk in the freedom you speak of to be who we're meant to be without fully receiving God's power in our life. And the freedom that comes with that. So there's the belief on the front end, and then there's the understanding on the back end.
Right.
And so, I had to add that part of the power tool as you're speaking, because I think there is a tendency for some of us, once we understand the do, as you mentioned, we're just going to start clocking hours.
Right.
We're going to sacrifice things that matter,
Right.
right? Just to get the hours and to do the do, as if that somehow
Right.
is the way we should be living. So,
Right. No, that's so good. It's so good. And I think that's what, and we talked about this before, that's what gives the freedom of that assignment to be what it is, an assignment. It's not our identity. It's not our self-sufficiency.
Right.
It's not our power. And that's when he gets all the glory.
Yeah.
So ultimately that's what we want. So you guys, this has been so fun. So exciting. So stay tuned. This was just part one of what we have coming up. We're going to be diving deeper into all of these, really your passions, your strengths, your giftings, how God has uniquely created you, and then how to be able to be wise stewards of those giftings with that, taking care of ourselves with our mind, our body, and our soul. And then really, how do we practically put all that together? And what does it look like in the day-to-day life? So we love you guys. Make sure, if you like this, make sure you share the video. And if you're watching the replay, we're so glad you joined us. And honestly, if you're watching for the first time, we're so glad that you're on here too. Let us know those things in the comments. If you're on the replay, just type replay in there so that we can make sure that we communicate with you throughout the week. And if there are any questions you guys have, any prayers you need or anything, message us. We love that part of our community of that support, because we need each other. And we're here to empower you guys. That is our ultimate goal, is for you to feel like you have got just a strength army behind you, lifting you up and encouraging you. You're not alone on this. So we love you guys. Happy Monday, and we'll see you next week for part 2.
Okay, bye. Bye, you guys.